The text message glowed in the darkness of my kitchen. We needed a family trip without any outsiders. Tom agrees. My mother-in-law's words burned into my retinas at 3 a.m., the blue light harsh against my trembling fingers. I'm Mabel, and after 12 years of marriage, I just discovered my husband left for a weekend getaway with his parents without telling me. The suitcase I'd noticed missing from our closet suddenly made perfect sense. My bare feet carried me through our empty house, each step echoing against hardwood floors that had witnessed countless family dinners where Norma Johnson picked apart every decision I'd ever made. The guest room still smelled of her perfume from her last visit, that sickly sweet gardenia scent that gave me headaches. I dialed Tom's number, listening to it ring until his voicemail kicked in. "Hey, you've reached Tom." I hung up. Called again. And again. On the fourth try, he answered with a whispered, "It's late, Mabel. Where are you? Mom thought it would be good for us to." Us? The word tasted like vinegar. And who exactly is us, Tom? Don't make this difficult. You know how Mom gets when. When what? When her 44-year-old son shows a hint of backbone? Silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. In the background, I heard Norma's muffled voice. "Is that her? Tell her we're busy." "I have to go," Tom mumbled. "Of course you do." I ended the call before he could respond, staring at our wedding photo on the wall. That young, hopeful couple smiled back at me, unaware of how thoroughly Norma would poison everything. My phone buzzed again, a text from Tom. "Mom says you're welcome to join us next time if you learn to be more accommodating." Accommodating. 12 years of biting my tongue, of enduring Norma's subtle jabs and not-so-subtle criticisms. 12 years of watching Tom shrink into himself whenever his mother entered the room. 12 years of being the outsider in my own marriage. I walked to our bedroom and opened Tom's dresser drawer. Under his meticulously folded socks lay the brochure for the luxury resort they'd booked, the one Tom had promised we'd visit together for our anniversary. Something shifted inside me then, like tectonic plates grinding against each other before an earthquake. My hands stopped shaking. My vision cleared. And for the first time in 12 years, I felt something beyond hurt and resignation. I felt rage. And as I stood there in our bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of my husband's betrayal, I made a decision. Norma Johnson was about to learn that some outsiders bite back. I found the old photo album wedged behind our bookshelf, its edges worn from the times I'd pulled it out during sleepless nights. The first photo showed Tom and me at the county fair, cotton candy stuck to his chin, my head thrown back in laughter. Before Norma decided I wasn't good enough for her precious son. My phone lit up with Lisa's name. "Tell me you're not sitting there wallowing," she said when I answered. "I'm organizing evidence." I flipped through more pages, watching our relationship transform through snapshots. Did I ever tell you about our first Christmas as a couple? The infamous turkey incident? Norma criticized my cooking so much that Tom actually defended me. Called her behavior inappropriate. I traced the edge of a photo showing all of us around that disaster of a dinner table. That was the last time he ever stood up to her. And now he's ghosting you for a family vacation. Lisa's voice hardened. "Have you checked your joint account?" The question hit like a slap. I hadn't even thought about money. My hands shook as I pulled up our banking app, and there it was, a $5,000 withdrawal from yesterday. Resort deposit. "He used our anniversary fund," I whispered. "Of course he did. Because Mommy wanted the premium suite." The front door clicked open, and Tom's keys jangled in the hallway. "I have to go," I told Lisa. "He's back. Remember, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting." And you're definitely not an outsider. I ended the call as Tom appeared in the doorway, looking rumpled and guilty. The resort lost our reservation, he said without preamble. Mom's furious. Is that why you came crawling back? Don't start, Mabel. I'm not in the mood for drama. I held up the photo album. Remember this version of us? Before you became your mother's puppet? That's not fair. He loosened his tie, avoiding my eyes. Mom just wants what's best for me. And what do you want, Tom? I want. He trailed off, staring at the photo album. I want things to be simple again. Things were never simple. You just had a spine back then. His phone buzzed, Norma's special ringtone. Tom reached for it automatically, like a dog responding to its master's whistle. Don't answer it, I said softly. Just once, choose me instead. He looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. His hand trembled slightly. The buzzing continued, filling our silence with its desperate demand for attention. Tom answered the call. And in that moment, watching my husband disappear into Norma's web once again, I realized that sometimes the deepest betrayals happen in the quietest moments, in the smallest choices we make. Tom's laptop chimed with an incoming email while he showered. I shouldn't have looked. But after 12 years of marriage, boundaries had become as blurred as the steam on our bathroom mirror. The subject line from Norma read, Mabel's latest drama. My fingers moved before my conscience could object. There they were, dozens of emails between my husband and his mother, dissecting every conversation we'd had, every argument. Every intimate moment I thought belonged only to us. She's becoming impossible to live with, Tom had written 3 days ago. Always complaining about how you treat her, making me choose sides. Norma's response, divorce isn't failure, darling. Sometimes it's the only way to fix a mistake. The shower stopped running. I kept scrolling, my chest tightening with each revelation. Tom had shared everything, my fears about not having children, my career frustrations, even my private therapy sessions. What are you doing? I didn't turn around. Reading about what a mistake I am. Those are private. Private? Like our marriage was supposed to be private? I spun in his desk chair. Tell me, Tom, does your mother know what position we used the last time we had sex? Or did you spare her those details? He grabbed for the laptop, but I held firm. You're overreacting. Am I? Because according to these emails, I've been overreacting for 12 years. I pulled up another message. Here's a good one, you telling your mother about my miscarriage before I'd even processed it myself. She needed to know. She needed to know nothing. That was my grief, Tom. Mine. His face hardened into that familiar mask of passive resistance. You've never understood our family dynamic. Your family dynamic? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. No, I understand perfectly. I'm just the surrogate wife you married to play house while mommy pulls your strings. That's not fair. Neither is this. I turned the laptop toward him, displaying an email from last month. You've been planning this trip for weeks. The resort, the activities, all while watching me get excited about our anniversary plans. Tom's silence said everything his weak excuses couldn't. I stood up, my whole body trembling. You know what the worst part is? I actually thought we were happy once. But looking at these emails, at how easily you betrayed me over and over. I moved past him toward the door. I wonder if you ever loved me at all. Mabel, wait. No. I grabbed my keys. I'm done waiting for you to choose me. I'm done being the outsider in my own marriage. And I'm definitely done letting your mother write our story. The door slammed behind me with a finality that felt like freedom. The resort's marble lobby gleamed with quiet wealth, exactly the kind of place Norma would have chosen. I approached the front desk, Tom's credit card burning in my wallet, the joint account one he'd forgotten to cancel. "Welcome to the Grand Peninsula," the receptionist said. "Do you have a reservation?" "Not yet. But I'd like the presidential suite." I smiled, channeling Norma's imperious confidence. Money is no object. 10 minutes and $15,000 later, I had the key to the room my in-laws had tried to book. The same room where Tom and I were supposed to celebrate our anniversary. My phone buzzed. Frank, my father-in-law. I almost declined the call, but curiosity won. "Mabel," his voice was lower than usual. "I need to tell you something." I sat in a plush lobby chair, watching other guests drift past. "If Norma put you up to this. She doesn't know I'm calling." He paused. I found the divorce papers in Tom's briefcase. The marble floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What?" "They're already filled out, dated 3 weeks ago. Norma's lawyer drew them up." Of course she did. I pressed my fingers against my temples, feeling the familiar pressure of a Norma-induced headache building. "Did Tom sign them?" "Not yet." "But Mabel." Frank's voice cracked. "I should have stopped this years ago. Norma. She did the same thing to my first wife." The lobby's elegant music turned tinny in my ears. "Your first wife?" "Catherine. Before Norma." "She was." He took a shaky breath. "Norma was my son's teacher. She saw an opportunity when Catherine and I were struggling. Started counseling Tom, then me. Before I knew it, she orchestrated your divorce. And married me 6 months later." The bitterness in his voice was decades old. History's repeating itself, and I'm still too much of a coward to stop it. I stared at my reflection in the lobby's gilded mirrors, seeing myself clearly for the first time in years. "Why tell me this now?" "Because you're stronger than Catherine was. Than I was." Papers rustled in the background. "Norma's planning to serve you the papers at your anniversary dinner next week. She wants to humiliate you publicly, make you look unstable." Something cold and clarifying settled in my chest. "Thank you, Frank. What are you going to do?" I watched a wealthy couple check in, their matching luggage wheeled away by attentive staff. "I'm going to enjoy my stay in the presidential suite. Then I'm going to write my own ending to this story. Be careful. Norma has been playing this game a long time," I finished. "But she's never played it with someone who knows all her moves." I ended the call and opened my banking app. Time to make sure our joint account was empty before Tom remembered it existed. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be the victim in someone else's story. The hotel bar hummed with quiet conversation when I overheard them, 2 waiters discussing the notorious Blackwood Inn on the outskirts of town. "Another guest fled in the middle of the night," one said. "Swears they heard children crying in the walls." "That place should be condemned," his colleague replied. "Remember those photos from the renovation? Creepy doesn't begin to cover it." I nursed my martini, Norma's voice echoing in my head. "I simply cannot stay anywhere less than 4 stars, Thomas. My nerves can't handle subpar accommodations." My phone lit up with a text from Tom. "Mom's having anxiety attacks about the anniversary dinner. Please don't make a scene." The perfect plan crystallized like ice in my glass. I beckoned the waiter over, sliding him a generous tip. Tell me more about the Blackwood Inn. 20 minutes later, I had everything I needed. My fingers hovered over my phone, then dialed the number I'd sworn never to use. Norma Johnson speaking. Norma, it's Mabel. I forced warmth into my voice. I've been thinking about our situation. Have you finally come to your senses? Actually, I wanted to make peace. I found this charming historic hotel for the anniversary dinner, very exclusive, very elegant. The Blackwood Inn. The silence crackled with suspicion. I've never heard of it. It's a hidden gem. They only take select reservations. I paused. Of course, if you'd rather choose somewhere else. Nonsense. If you've finally learned to appreciate refinement, I won't discourage it. I made the reservation under her name, adding every luxurious upgrade possible. The manager seemed desperate to book the notoriously empty rooms. Lisa called just as I finished. You're plotting something, she said. I can hear it in your voice. Did you know the Blackwood Inn was originally a Victorian sanitarium? Mabel. And that Norma's deathly afraid of ghosts? Tom told me once she couldn't sleep for weeks after watching a mild horror movie. This isn't you, Lisa warned. Revenge won't fix anything. I watched my reflection in the bar's mirrored wall, remembering every cutting remark, every manipulated holiday, every betrayal. Maybe it's time it was me. And what happens when it backfires? Then I'll have the satisfaction of knowing I didn't go quietly. I finished my martini. They're planning to ambush me with divorce papers at dinner. Might as well give them a night they'll never forget. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of. Of what? Hurting people? That's the point. The line went quiet. Finally, Lisa sighed. At least promise me you'll think about what you really want out of this. I hung up without promising anything, already imagining Norma's face when she realized where she'd be spending the night. Sometimes karma needs a little push, and I was tired of being the only one afraid of ghosts in this marriage. The Blackwood Inn loomed against the twilight sky, its Victorian architecture a perfect match for Norma's horrified expression. This cannot be the right place. The reviews mentioned its historic charm. I gestured toward the creaking iron gates. Shall we? Tom clutched the manila envelope containing the divorce papers, his knuckles white. Frank hung back, avoiding my eyes. They all followed me into the dimly lit lobby, where peeling wallpaper and dusty chandeliers set the perfect stage. I refuse to stay here, Norma announced, her voice echoing. Something creaked overhead, making her jump. The reservation's non-refundable. I smiled. And I used your credit card, Tom. All $5,000 of it. His face darkened. You had no right. Like you had no right to use our anniversary fund for your secret family vacation? A door slammed somewhere upstairs. Norma grabbed Tom's arm. We're leaving. Now. Actually, I pulled out my phone, displaying the emails I'd forwarded to myself from Tom's laptop. We should discuss these first. Especially the ones about your plans for tonight. The color drained from Tom's face. How did you? The same way you shared all my secrets with your mother. I snooped. Thunder rumbled outside, right on cue. Funny how karma works. Norma stepped forward, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at my chest. You vindictive little. Careful, Norma. The walls have ears. And according to local legend, they have eyes too. A child's laugh echoed through the corridor. Norma spun around, her composure cracking. What I want to know, I continued, is whether you plan to serve me divorce papers before or after the main course. This is ridiculous, Tom snapped, but his voice trembled. We're leaving. Like you left me behind for your family trip? Or like you left your father's first wife, Norma? The silence that followed was deafening. Frank stepped out of the shadows, his voice barely a whisper. You told her? Someone had to. I watched Norma's carefully constructed world begin to crack. Someone had to stop history from repeating itself. The lights flickered, and somewhere in the building, a door creaked open. Norma's breathing became rapid, shallow. What's wrong, Mother? I used her favorite weapon, false concern. You look pale. Perhaps you should sit down. Tom moved toward me, divorce papers extended like a shield. Just sign them, Mabel. End this madness. I reached for the envelope, but instead of taking it, I let my hand drop. No. No? I won't sign anything tonight. Instead, I'm going to enjoy watching karma finally catch up with all of you. I stepped back toward the exit. Sweet dreams. I hear the spirits are especially active after midnight. The ancient door swung shut behind me, leaving them in the gathering darkness. As I walked away, I heard Norma's first frightened scream and smiled. The Grand Peninsula's lobby felt different at dawn. I sat in the same plush chair where I'd received Frank's warning, watching Tom pace between marble columns. You can't just empty our accounts, he said. Like you couldn't just plan my public humiliation with your mother? I placed the divorce papers on the coffee table between us. I signed them, by the way. But there's something you should see first. Tom grabbed the envelope, but when he opened it, his face went slack. Inside weren't divorce papers, but printed copies of every email between him and Norma, every secret shared, every betrayal documented. Where are the real papers? With my lawyer. Along with evidence of financial infidelity, emotional abuse, and conspiracy to defraud. I leaned forward. Did you really think I'd just roll over and play dead? The elevator dinged. Norma emerged, still wearing last night's clothes, her perfect facade cracked by fear and sleeplessness. Frank followed, looking older than I'd ever seen him. You. Norma's voice shook. You planned this. Those things in the hotel. What things, Mother? The creaking floors? The strange sounds? I smiled. Or just your guilty conscience? I'll destroy you for this. Like you destroyed Catherine? The name hit her like a physical blow. Frank told me everything. How you manipulated your way into their marriage. How you're doing the same thing to mine. Tom stepped between us. That's enough. No, it's not. I stood. For 12 years, I tried to be good enough for this family. But that was never possible, was it? Because Norma doesn't want a daughter-in-law. She wants control. You ungrateful, Norma started forward, but Frank caught her arm. She's right, Norma. His quiet words fell like stones in still water. And I won't watch you destroy another family. The lobby grew silent except for the gentle fountain music. Tom looked between his mother and me, lost without someone telling him what to think. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm taking half of everything, the money, the house, the respect you never gave me. You can fight it, but then these emails go public. Your perfect family image shatters. You wouldn't dare, Norma whispered. I picked up my bag, feeling lighter than I had in years. Try me. Or better yet, ask Catherine what happens when someone finally stands up to you. Mabel, wait. Tom's voice cracked. I never meant. I know. That's the problem. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Norma? The Blackwood Inn wasn't actually haunted. I just paid the staff to create some special effects. Turns out money really can buy karma. The sound of Norma's outraged gasp followed me out into the morning light, sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. The last box from my old life sat unopened in my new apartment, labeled simply photos. Lisa perched on my second-hand couch, watching me stare at it. You don't have to look at those yet, she said. Actually, I do. I opened the box, pulling out the wedding album I'd once treasured. Frank called this morning. He's leaving Norma. Really? Said he's going to contact Catherine, try to make amends. I traced our wedding portrait with my finger. Funny how one person's courage can inspire another's. My phone buzzed, Tom's third attempt to call this week. I declined it, just like the others. He's been asking about you at the library, Lisa said carefully. Says he's started therapy. Good for him. I placed the wedding album in a drawer, then pulled out another photo, one I'd forgotten about. My first day as a librarian, standing proudly in front of the children's section I'd redesigned. Before I'd let someone else's expectations shrink my world. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Norma, looking smaller somehow without her usual armor of perfection. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. I found these in Thomas's old room, she said, holding out a stack of letters. They're from Catherine to Frank. I kept them hidden. All these years. Why are you giving them to me? Because you were right. Her hand trembled. About everything. I took the letters, feeling their weight, physical and metaphorical. I'm not going to forgive you, Norma. I know. She straightened her shoulders, a ghost of her old authority. But perhaps you can give these to Frank. Help him find her. After she left, I added the letters to the drawer with my wedding album, a repository of other people's unfinished stories. Lisa helped me hang my favorite photograph in its place of honor, me at the Grand Peninsula's pool, laughing in the sunshine. Taken the morning after the Blackwood Inn incident. My first day of freedom. So what now? Lisa asked. My phone buzzed again, not Tom this time, but the library director. The head librarian position I'd applied for weeks ago, back when I was still trying to be small enough to fit in someone else's story. I answered the call, already knowing I'd accept the offer. After all, revenge might have given me the push I needed, but it was the choice to write my own story that finally set me free. Now? I smiled at Lisa after ending the call. Now I choose my own haunted hotels. The autumn sunlight streamed through my windows, warming the space I'd created for myself, a space where no one else held the pen to my story.